Welcome back to the Pro Football Pod. We are bringing you the Week 12 recap. We had some freaking bangers this past weekend, including that Cowboys-Commanders matchup down to the deadline. That's what the Cowboys do. They play great teams great. Sam Howell almost had him.
If by
Talking about
almost
playing
you
great
mean
teams.
he also about hit a $100 million lottery, yes. That game was absolutely from start to finish just a complete wash. Now, fantasy purposes, it was a great game.
Sam Howell showed that he had a little bit. We had a group chat and we were talking about the beginning of that game and how the Cowboys went up, kind of early. And it was like, all right, well, let's see what Sam Howell has. And he made a couple plays. He kind of brought it back a little bit, but Cowboys roster, Commanders roster, it's not a fair comparison. Like, that's just the reality.
Cowboys are only
The
going to
cold
add
hard
this week.
truth, as you would say.
I think
That
that
boy
you could.
Shaq.
Oh, that's what is that, Austin?
Shaq Leonard's going to be added to the Cowboys, so we're all
Oh.
getting better out here.
Well, you heard it here first. Breaking news, guys. Shaq Leonard's getting
It's
added to the
breaking
Cowboys.
news.
So, on top of, I think that another situation where the roster might not be favorable would be like the Frank Reich situation with the Carolina Panthers. What did they really expect to get out of their first year with a rookie quarterback with no offensive line, no real weapons, like that are under the age of 32, no running back. They have a
Not
decent
even
defense.
that, but you're only, 10, 11 games into it?
11 games that they played.
Like, I get having, buyer's remorse and, oh, well, we can't just cut the rookie that we're paying guaranteed money to. So we're just going to cut the coach who we're still paying guaranteed money to, which makes no sense to me at all. Like, I don't understand why you don't at least just write it out for the season. To me, anytime a coach just gets canned after 1 year, that's always dumb because you don't even give them time to really implement their values, implement their system, get all of, their guys in there. Most of the guys they're working with, they're still guys that are on contracts from the regime before.
And they finally got to get their guy. Like, they brought in a coach in the offseason, and then they went out and got the number one overall pick and got the guy. And I think that that's what it is. I think that not Bryce Young got Frank Reich fired. I think C.J. Stroud got Frank Reich fired. Like, straight up.
That's a great point.
Yeah. You could easily see that. I mean, how do you not take CJ overall?
Well, you're watching your team struggle, and then you're watching the Houston Texans this year who were expected to struggle. And
Expected to be worse.
Stroud is just out here balling, and their defense is playing solid, but it's not like they're playing absolute world beaters out here. There's a reason all of these games are really close at the end, and a lot of them are turning into shootouts in the second half. But I mean, yeah, I that's a great point. Like, you watch CJ Stroud doing it every week, and your team's absolutely struggling. Something's got to give.
CJ Stroud's doing it with a defensive head coach, as well.
So did you hear about CJ on draft night whenever he got taken to Houston? They were like, all right, so what receiver are you looking at? Like, who would you want on this team? And he said Tank Dell.
Tank Dell. And they've already got that connection. They're going to be with each other for at least the next 4 years. There's no reason for them not to be. Matthew Stafford
beautiful connection.
Had a beautiful connection this week with another player not named Cooper Kupp. Maybe they started, maybe over the bye week, KYREN Williams was sitting in on the coffee, morning ritual or whatever. But Cooper Kupp, it seems like he's not Matthew's favorite, at least whenever he's injured. 229 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 to Higbee, and then 2 to KYREN. I mean, jeez.
The boys were feasting
Puka,
in the divisional matchup.
Nothing.
I think that was also one of those, and it's kind of been the theme of the Rams this season as well, especially since Kupp has come back, to where if there's not the need to pass downfield, they just simply don't. They have no problem handing it to KYREN 28 times a game or dumping it off to him in these, makeshift screens slash, passing runs that these teams are doing now, to where they're just putting the ball in his hands 30 times a game. And I don't know, like, if what design that's by, if it's let's save these guys for the end, if that's just game script, because the Cardinals, Sean McVay's looking at everything that everybody else is looking at. The Cardinals are terrible versus running backs. They're terrible versus the run. So that's what he's going to lean into.
It's crazy the workload he received coming off an injury like that.
Well, they came off of IR, and then they also had a bye week a week after. So in a lot of ways, he had a 5 week stretch on a 3 to 4 week injury. He should have been healthy, whereas Cooper wasn't fully healthy coming off, and that's what we really saw is like the difference in these two players, the exact same situation. I think Devin Achan isn't a great example because he injured the same spot, but it wasn't like the same injury. He like re-injured it. He got hit, and maybe he was a little bit tender in that area, but these guys that are coming off of these like high ankle sprains and these knee injuries, you do have to be careful. I think with enough rest, though, that's whenever you start them. So Trevor Lawrence also had a great game. He got to play against Houston. Man, I was the biggest Houston fan at the end of that game. I thought that CJ Stroud threw it away and that they didn't have a chance, and then they had a chance, and then they didn't have a chance anymore, and it was a sad ending. But Trevor Lawrence has had a rushing touchdown in the last 2 weeks. I think we're seeing a little bit of a trend with Zay Jones coming back that these guys are having to cover the end of the end zone, and he's able to just kind of scoot up inside, just like Jalen Hurts did last night.
I think we're all set
it's
with
definitely opening it up for him in the middle of the field more.
yeah. I was just saying I think we're all set with like regular season games. Like let's just move on to playoffs. Like we know the top teams. They're
Yeah.
just playing for fun at this point. Like we know that. I mean, Houston should be like a wild card team with the
Well,
way
see,
they're playing.
that's
The
where
Jags should
you
be in
need
it.
these games, because yes, we know who the top dogs are, but it's for these teams like the Jags and the Texans, or how the Steelers have been playing lately, or hell, the Broncos, the winning streak they're on, to see
they've
like
been going
those
crazy.
bottom teams when they get into the playoffs, because there's certain teams there that these other top echelon teams don't want to see, like the
Yeah.
Texans. I would say most teams probably don't want to see them in the playoffs because they're going to cause too many troubles.
They're just coming from behind and whatnot.
So
The
do you
amount of
think the team that deserves the Super Bowl is the best team or the team that stays the healthiest the longest and makes it to the end? Like
Oh, anybody that's won the Super Bowl will tell you there's a good amount of luck that goes into it.
yeah.
Like, you need certain teams to lose to get certain seeding. Like, you can only control what you can control. And just you've got so many factors that go into actually making it all the way to the Super Bowl, let alone win it, to where there has to be luck on your side, and injuries are a big part of it. Like, if you're able to withstand injuries or have your injuries happen at the beginning of the season versus the end of the season, so you're getting guys back healthy at the end, that has a factor in it too. I mean, we've seen things like, just the Dolphins, for example, where Tua, the last couple years, he's been out, don't even have a chance for the end of the season.
Nope.
So it's like, what would they do if they had that chance? And those are things like, it's just bad luck.
I think that the amount of really good teams, the amount of playoff teams that are about to have to play Baltimore is crazy because every time I see that, I say, ooh, man, that sucks for them. They've got to play Baltimore. But in reality, all of these teams are playoff teams. Baltimore's end of season schedule is filled with just matchup after matchup after matchup. It's like they're being tested, and I want to see Lamar stay healthy and to play into the playoffs because I think we're going to see the best playoffs ever. Like the
Yeah, I
amount
just
of
want to see good football.
and we're
I don't want to
seeing
see
it.
all these injuries on these teams. Like let's just get to the playoffs. Like having Mark Andrews on the Ravens, would elevate that team into the playoffs. Like I would not be worried with them going in. But now with this injury, it's like I don't know
I
if that
don't
team's
know
gonna make it
though.
to the end.
Isaiah Likely looked very solid.
He did, and if he can come along for them, but he's not Mark Andrews. But
Isaiah likely was
you know,
getting targeted heavily, which was what I liked the
he's
most.
he's an
Just
athlete.
just like Rashi Rice. 10 targets for the first time all season, double digit targets, 8 catches, 107 with the touchdown as well. We finally saw what we needed to see. This guy's not being started in enough leagues. Like less than 50% of the leagues that have him rostered are actually even putting him in the starting lineup. And I mean, why would you not want the number one receiver for the Chiefs? Kadarius Toney's always hurt. Who else is
I'll
there?
give you one reason. They got a bunch of butterfingers over there. Have you watched the film? And
10
no,
for
I agree
8.
with you. Rashi Rice is
What
solid.
I wanted to bring up on that with Rasheed Rice, and you mentioned it, the 10 targets, is that this? I mean, obviously we don't know off the top of our heads, but this has got to be the first time since Tyreek Hill was there that somebody got double-digit targets and Kelsey
Yeah,
did not.
it has to be. I mean, I look at box scores of teams that
Like
he's
Kelsey
not
still had
targeting
a
someone this
solid
much.
line, 6 receptions, 91 yards, 7 targets.
But he
Like,
didn't have 10.
but
Yeah.
that's to where, like I said, like
That's
since
alarming.
Tyreek has
That's
been there,
alarming.
if somebody's gonna have double digit, you at least expect it to be Kelsey
And
or
Rashi
Kelsey as
Rice,
well.
6'2", 203, ideal wide receiver.
No, he is.
That's Justin Jefferson. That's the exact size that we're looking for. That could be the new the this could be the
He's
beginning.
he's got all the attributes you want. Like he's got that
Exactly.
dog in him.
He's
He's
got
got the
the hands,
speed.
he's
He's
got
got
the
the yak. He's got the hands.
I think his route running could
75%
probably
hands.
be better because he doesn't get enough separation all the time. But that's because he's a young receiver getting better. I think the next guy we got to talk about, Calvin Ridley, is the exact opposite of that. I think that he's already one of the best receivers on the planet, and we're finally starting to see it now. He's doing it with very limited looks too, but he only has 5 touchdowns on the whole year, and he has 3 of them in the last 2 weeks ever since who is back?
Zay Jones. Come on now. He out there.
And
Ridley balling.
well, that's the thing. Like with Zay Jones, them being at full health with Kirk, Zay, Ingram, and Ridley, there's no way you can double anybody. So Ridley's getting all of this one work, and you're seeing it in the last couple weeks to where, that's why we've been bringing him up is because he's been underperforming compared to Kirk. He's been honestly at this point completely underwhelming. And so for these last couple weeks, it's just kind of like, okay, this is what we expected out of Ridley. And this is, I think, I don't see any reason for it to change. Like, especially if you can get it again this week versus Cincinnati. 3 weeks in a row of that's just going to tell you, okay, this is kind of here to stay the rest of the season.
He needs to average like 80 or 90. I guess he needs to average like 70 yards a game over the rest of the season to be able to hit 1,000. And he already has 5 touchdowns with, I think, 5 more games to play. So he's got an opportunity to hit 1,000 for 10. But he's going to have to put all of his production at the end of the year. They're also making a playoff push, man. Like they have to play Houston, they have to play Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, Tampa for the next 4 games, and Cleveland and Tampa are both away games. That's going to be rough for Jacksonville. They're going to need Ridley. They're not going to be able to rely on ETN to be able to get it done.
Yeah, a little banged up injury for ETN.
I think that a player that we've been shitting on for a long time, and with due cause, because whenever the Cowboys are up by a whole lot, they don't need Tony Pollard. And over the last 2 weeks, they've been in these blowout games, only giving up 10 points, scoring over 30. And finally, Tony Pollard is being extremely effective with a limited amount of touches. Now, last week he had 17 touches, and this week he had 19. So he's going up. We're seeing more and more from him. He's getting more production, which is awesome. But just seeing him being able to put touchdowns on the board, get a lot of yards, get a lot of touches, like we're starting to see from Tony Pollard what you need to see, and he's got a really nice schedule coming up.
It does. He has a really good playoff schedule. Almost really any player on the Cowboys have a great fantasy playoff schedule coming up. Like
And their
Cowboys,
offense is so good.
and they're clicking on all cylinders. Like even the Philly game, like their offense to me, that there wasn't really anything to knock them for against in that game.
Nah.
And so I agree with you there. I think the trajectory for Pollard is going up, and traditionally, when we get later in the season like this, and you're playing well for the Cowboys, especially when they're playing on the road outdoors, these colder weather games, you're typically going to lean on your running backs a little more, wear down that defense more. Because when it's cold like that, nobody wants to hit. Like they just don't. I don't care how aggressive you are. It sucks. So yeah, I'm with you there on Pollard. I think they keep riding him forward, and Dowdle still available out there in a lot of leagues. I'd look to pick him up definitely for a handcuff.
Austin's favorite running back nowadays doesn't wear the star anymore. He plays for a different team over in Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor having a freaking week. 15 touches is all it takes to get 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they're coming off the bye, playing against Tampa Bay. They got Tennessee,
Tampa
Cincinnati.
Bay has a really, really solid run defense.
It's
this
impressive.
Year too. They suck in the pass game, but their run defense is really solid. So for him to like do what, like you said, 91 yards, 2 tutties on 15 touches, that's efficient.
Now, he has not touched 100 yards rushing yet this season. He gets Tennessee this week. He gets to play against the Kang. So, I don't know. This could be the week that Jonathan Taylor gets his 100. You know? Eclipses the Kang.
Yeah, who's that?
The King. King Henry.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Never heard it pronounced that way.
The Kang.
I don't know. I don't know if Tennessee would be a stretch because again they too have a very solid run defense.
They do.
I mean,
but that's about the only thing.
I'm never going to discount Jonathan Taylor on being able to get yardage because he can break one for 60.
Dude, he's so electric. So electric.
It shows why they should have paid him, or why the Dolphins should have acquired him.
They did
I know
pay
you guys realize why you didn't acquire him.
We got this guy in the 3rd round that's way better.
Yeah. Well, hey, hold your horses.
I know that's your favorite player. I'm sorry.
No, we asked about him. It's just Irsay wanted literally the house to come with him.
Yeah,
and
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
KYREN Williams is back.
I love how, yes, he balled out with his yardage on the ground. Over 120 rushing yards is absolutely what you love to see. But the fact that
16 touches,
the fact that his 2 touchdowns came through the air, that just kind of made me chuckle. Like, it doesn't matter. You're getting the points either way. But that just did kind of make me chuckle when I looked at the box score, and it was like, well, he's got 2 touchdowns, and I don't see him in the rushing category. Oh, here we go. He's also got 6 receptions for 60 yards and 2 tutties. And it's like, the dude was just absolutely balling. Like, KYREN's back, and Sean McVay said, hey, watch this.
The Cardinals' defense is Swiss cheese.
Like, they are.
No knock on KYREN. KYREN's good, but like that's like running through a wet paper towel right there.
Now, he's got a test this week, and the reason I wanted to bring him up is he's got Cleveland into Baltimore. In Baltimore. Again, they keep showing up all the time. I don't get it how they're playing everybody, but they are. So, would you guys be starting KYREN Williams this week against Cleveland after what he just did?
Yeah, I mean, Warren ran all over him. Samaje Perine was eating.
Warren did it on one play. and Samaje
Okay.
Perine part of a
It
three-headed
only
monster.
takes one, baby.
It
That's
only
football.
takes one.
That's the
I'm
beauty of
also
football.
I'm not gonna.
And they lost their big man. They lost their the
Miles
defensive
Garrett.
guy on the Browns, Miles Garrett. They
Miles
lost
Garrett's
him.
out.
Shoulder injury. Yeah,
Oh
popped his shoulder.
no.
Like torn ligaments
He'll
in his
probably
shoulder or
play.
something.
He'll probably play. He only
Well,
needs one.
He's done for.
my thing with KYREN too is you look like I just said it too. His receiving line, 6 receptions, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that run defense of the Browns that would typically make you nervous doesn't make me near as nervous with KYREN. So like he's still playable. You're still gonna put him out there simply because of the volume that he's seeing. And Cleveland's pass defense is very solid as well. With their pass rush, their DBs are playing out of their minds this year. So for that, I'd look for that. They're obviously going to focus in on Cup and Puka. So you're going to have dump off city to KYREN in that game all day.
If you're still listening, thank you. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. You also remember last week whenever we talked about the next player that we're going to discuss right here, the Muth, because he be getting Luth. In Cincinnati, against the 4th worst tight end coverage so far this year, we mentioned that
on you, Logan Wilson.
Freiermuth was potentially going to do really well. Now, did we tell you that he was going to get targeted 11 times or that he was going to have 120 yards? No, because nobody knew that that was going to happen. Nobody also knew that the Steelers were going to have 400 yards offense for the first time in like 3 years. It's been a long time.
All you had to do was get rid of Matt Canada. We've been screaming it. The first game without him, and Muth gets targeted the most of any guy on the team. He explodes for over 100 yards. They were throwing deep shots. Like you actually saw multiple deep balls being thrown.
Deontay Johnson did not look like he wanted to play football. He looked like he was fucking bored.
Did you see him walk?
Dude,
he walked.
Whenever the fumble, yes. And he was just like, whatever. We'll get him next time.
I know. I was kind of on his side where I get, like, he looked like the play was just over, and, like, why are these people running around
but you're getting killed in the film room for that. Like, coach is looking at you like, the fuck are you doing? Like, what is this right here?
Did you hear
that right there? He wasn't getting targeted.
Well,
shit like that gets you taken out of the game.
But, dude, you play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you won.
I understand.
You won.
Yes, it's the same thing Pickens did.
Yep.
It's like you cannot bitch if you win. If you lose, you can complain about
your coming off injury and getting 11 targets.
Well, this isn't his first game off injury. This is his second game off injury.
Look how efficient he was.
They won the game. So I completely agree with you, Justin. I think that whenever we saw it out of Pickens, that a lot of it comes from the locker room. And that obviously that's the way Deontay Johnson is. And that's why Pickens is starting to be that way as well. I don't think that the culture there, they need to fix that. And Tomlin's going to. He sees what the problem is. Did they pay Deontay Johnson, or was he not?
I believe he got a contract extension.
Like right at the beginning of the season or whatever.
Using him up for the money they pay him.
But that's my thing. Like, I understand, like, if the play's away from you, okay, I get that. But, like, if you're winning and there's a play going on and that's what you're showing, that's the kind of shit to get you taken out of a game plan. Now, all right, that's how you want to play? I'm going to have you block every play this game. You're not going to get targeted.
Now, I think that Arizona might be Swiss cheese across the board, but they're 27th against tight ends. It might be because nobody even needs to throw to the tight end. They're just like, oh, that receiver's open. Oh, that running back's got a wide open hole. So that could be part of it. I think the Muth will probably get Luth again, but we'll see. He's got New England after that. Fortunately, he shouldn't be viewed as the number one target. Some of these receivers or the running game should honestly be viewed as the number one stop for New England. But, we'll see. Muth is available in 49%, 51% of Yahoo leagues right now. That's
you had to drop him. I mean, he was in and out of injury. So, like,
I dropped him for Dalton Schultz, and I'm still
going
to run Dalton Schultz over him just because of the difference in offense and whatnot. But
Schultz is a top 5 tight end moving forward right now.
So if you feel sick, just like me, then make sure go to Tulsi Rose Tea at tulsirosetea.com, where you can get the cattail cold buster, so you can bust that cold and feel better, because that's what life's all about. I love you guys. Until next week, peace.
And the outro music is playing.
It is currently. It was really badly timed, but yeah, it is playing.